Something that comes up a lot in the comment section when I do different modifications on systems is, that's really cool. I don't think I'm ever going to do that though, mostly because there's a soldering iron involved and there's a lot of small soldering and wires are all over the place. So at times I will look for more beginner friendly mods that people can try at home. But today we're looking at one mod in particular that actually adds a ton of functionality to the GameCube, does not require a soldering iron, and actually it's pretty easy. In fact, I was able to put it all together in roughly 30 minutes, start to finish, and well, you're going to see what that process looks like and what we're able to do here now with the flippy drive for the GameCube. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and we're going to start today with this video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by RayNeo and their new Air 2 glasses. Imagine having your own personalized big screen display anywhere you go. The RayNeo Air 2s make it easy to bring a home theater experience with you, even in small spaces. I mean, if you're stuck on a plane for hours staring at the back of a seat, wouldn't you rather have a massive screen with your favorite game or movie right in front of you? Connect your DisplayPort-enabled phone or gaming device, play anywhere, anytime with a clear 1080p 120Hz display utilizing Sony low-power micro OLED technology. The screen size blew me away immediately with roughly 6 meters of space, giving you a 201-inch display. I see this as a perfect companion for the Switch in particular, paired with their Joy Dock with extended battery capacity. It's a handheld big screen whenever you want it. Physical buttons allow you to adjust both volume and brightness. The Air 2s have 10 levels of brightness to choose from at a peak of 600 nits, along with 3 levels of color adjustment. Similar AR glasses in the space come equipped with 2 speakers. However, RayNeo took things to the next level with 4 full-range speaker units with a symmetrical audio structure providing dynamic stereo sound. Also, the symmetrical speakers give you what's called whisper mode, which avoids sound leakage, letting you enjoy your experience without bothering people around you. I've been using the Air 2s quite a bit recently with my Steam Deck since it's extremely simple using one cable and it expands my viewing experience immediately. Also, not having to hold up a heavier handheld like this and really just use it as a controller makes for a more comfortable play session. Speaking of comfort, the Air 2s have 9 levels of adjustment for temple sizes, making them fit many different face shapes, along with the nose pads being adjustable in 3 different positions. The RayNeo Air 2s are a great travel companion, fitting easily into a bag or suitcase. Click the link in the description below to pick up your own pair of RayNeo Air 2s and experience the next generation of XR glasses. Thanks to RayNeo for sponsoring today's video. I followed the recent development for the flippy drive when I came across it on Twitter, with the big pitch of being a solderless install being the thing that really caught my eye. See, usually when I do a video showcasing a mod for different systems, people are on board until the soldering iron shows up on screen. The Pico boot is a great example since it was awesome in terms of functionality, but also requires you to run wires to the board. I figure this thing can add the core functionality of running GameCube backups on the system without making you solder to the board. That would be the way to go for most viewers. I did put an order in for a flippy drive bundle, but this one showed up, so I'm not really sure if this is part of a shipment for press or part of the bundle I had ordered. Either way, it showed up in a simple enough box with some fun markings showing a disc, GameCube controller, memory card, among other things. Inside, we have a ribbon cable, a 3D printed bracket and cap, along with the flippy drive itself. This little guy is based on the RP2040, which you can see here, and is paired with Wi-Fi, USB, and an SD card slot. We're basically looking at the brains of the operation here, but we do need this thing to get installed, and for that, I picked out a Spice Orange GameCube from Japan. I picked this one because, well, one, I like the color, which just screams 6th generation. 2, this mod is completely reversible if I want to remove it. And 3, I have the matching Game Boy player and controller, so let's actually unlock this thing and use it with some new hardware. I already mentioned it, but just to once again reiterate this point, you only really need a couple of screwdrivers to complete this install. You will want to get a Gamebit driver to open your GameCube. They're cheap on Amazon, so get both sizes just in case. Otherwise, 2 Phillips head screwdrivers, with one being a bit smaller, is about all you need. The nice thing here is the GameCube is actually a pretty easy system to work on. 4 screws on the bottom removes the top shell with the lid. From there, it's a number of larger Phillips head screws around the perimeter, along with the fan and the front controller board. You don't technically need to unplug this front board since you can just remove it and lay it off to the side. I just did it here for visibility in this video. With your screws out, you should be able to lift the entire disk drive unit up and remove it from the system. And now we have a clear view of where to install that cable. The idea here is we fold the ribbon cable in a way that sits it in between the drive connector and that board, while still keeping the normal connection intact. I had to triple check the folding pattern they have for us just to make sure, but once I figured it out and made the folds shown on their guide, it came together easily enough. The cable is at least designed to be bent and folded, so it isn't exactly a delicate ribbon cable. Now with the folded cable ready, I just had to press it into the connector on the board, which sounds really janky, but here it actually had a snug fit. It almost like clicked into place, you could say. From here, it's a matter of folding the cable over again to make room for the drive to sit down and complete that connection. That's right, we will keep the drive functionality, which will be important later on. It wasn't a hard press here, by the way, and if it's not sitting down with some light pressure, I would double check that ribbon connector seating just to be sure. Routing the cable around the front post, I plugged it into the flippy drive and set down the connector with minimal pressure. This is a more delicate connector, I noticed, so watch out for uneven pressure when you're clipping down, otherwise you could accidentally break the plastic clip. That 3D printed bracket sits on the side here to hold up the flippy drive, which is held in with a couple of smaller screws provided with the kit, and that's pretty much it for the flippy drive install. It's probably a good idea to drop a couple of screws in here along with the fan and power button to test before fully reassembling. For me, it came up on the first try and went through a setup process before kicking me to the custom menu. I wanted to make sure the latest firmware was installed, so I grabbed the update from their site and dropped it in on the SD card, which I do have a 64GB card here. If I end up using the flippy drive more as my main system, I most likely will upgrade to something like a 512GB card just so I have plenty of space for future backups. From here, you just hold X on boot and you'll have a menu allowing you to update that firmware. Everything looks good here, so let's get it together and try it out. When you turn on the system, it'll boot directly to the usual GameCube menu with a bit of a twist. This is their Cube Loader menu that houses all of your backups. It's a nice looking custom UI that gets you to your games quickly with this grid display. You're probably noticing that my grid is blank right now, so let's back up a few games. Going back to that bootloader menu, you can pick boot onboard dole and then backup. Once loaded, it asks you to insert a disk and press A. Now, two options are presented with fallback mode and fast mode. Unfortunately, fast mode is currently disabled, so I can really only test with fallback mode right now. This will completely back up your GameCube disk, all nearly 1.4 gigabytes of it, which means this isn't exactly a quick process. Some of the backups I made took upwards of 30 minutes and can end up being longer based on your laser's health and the shape of the disk. Apparently, fast mode cuts this time down significantly and would be a welcome upgrade over what currently works as another version of clean rip at this time. Once your game is fully ripped, it's saved to your SD card and will appear on your menu with a nice little graphic and everything. Choose it and you'll get this familiar looking startup screen to launch, and the game plays as if it were in the drive after that. Oh, and for those wondering, yes, you can just move ISO files to the SD card, and it'll pick those up as well, so it's not completely dependent on your physical games being ripped. I was curious about the load times for this versus the SD2 SP2, which sits in one of the bottom serial ports on the system. There's no point in comparing either of these to the disk drive, since they'll each turn in faster load times than the laser having to seek through a disk. But here, data is being sent in different ways using an SD card, and it could give us different results. It's worth pointing out that the GameCube already had pretty good load times off the disk when compared to the PS2 and Xbox in this generation, so already dealing with even quicker load times off either option for the SD card. But when loading from the flippy drive, I was able to find just faster loading across the board. Reckless might be the best example only because it has unusually long load times anyway, but the flippy drive cut through it pretty well compared to the SD2 SP2. Being able to feed information directly into the connection used by the drive should just be faster compared to the bottom serial ports, and here it certainly shows. Going forward, the developers behind this project do seem very open to suggestions for making this thing better, and with the install process being solderless, I could see a larger community growing around it. In this case, I wouldn't mind seeing easier ways to get games onto the SD card once the system is put back together. Sure, you can remove 4 screws, take the lid off, and you have access to it, but I would like to be able to set up the Wi-Fi to accept FTP from something like FileZilla and just drag and drop files through the network. I noticed a full backplate replacement is set to release soon that will even include a LAN port for networking, and that seems perfect for fast and accurate transfers. Otherwise, SD extension cables are being sold by LaserBear, and that LAN backplate even seems to have a spot in place to screw in a standard SD extension. Still, FTP support would be preferred so I can leave the GameCube in the entertainment center hooked up. There was also something else I was going to bring up, but in reading through some of their future plans, it looks like it's something they already thought of, using the Wi-Fi as a broadband adapter. While LAN is typically used because it's just more reliable, the idea of making the GameCube fully wireless to go online would be absolutely wild to see 23 years later. Something about making these older systems use newer technology like this and keeping it stock looking has always just been so interesting to me. It would make this a no-brainer purchase, by the way, as well, coming in around $40 if it could add networking to the system with games and file transfers. The consistent updates and potential of the flippy drive is something that people should take into account when choosing which mod chip or soft mod method to go with. Seeing them add Swiss support pretty quickly due to the community wanting it and further opening up the hardware with the idea of Bluetooth controller support could make this device more valuable over time. At the very least, it's something to keep tabs on to see how things turn out, because if they really can deliver all of these features that they've outlined, this would easily become the GameCube mod to get, especially at its current price point. Start to finish, installing the flippy drive, dumping the first game, and then launching it took about 90 minutes, with a large chunk of that being me watching a bar fill up as the game was ripped. I like the interface that they've created here, but I do find myself still gravitating to Swiss for now due to the overwhelming number of options baked into that launcher. Still, the option is there to use it, and if you've been on the fence with other mods that require soldering or that just outright replace the disk drive, this seems like the best route currently if you just want to play backed up games on real hardware. But let me know what you think about the flippy drive and if it's something you might try installing yourself at some point. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.